Hi, do you often hide things from your parents? For example, hobbies, photos from parties, or your texts with friends? My name is Mark, and today I will tell you why sometimes you should share some details of your personal life with your parents, so you don't get into some awkward situations, like I did. I'm still ashamed to remember this. It all started with the fact I had a new hobby. One day, one of my classmates brought manga. It's Japanese comics. I used to hear a lot about them, watch some anime series when I was a kid, but I didn't really dive into this topic. At the same time, I was interested in the bright cover and the description of the story. I asked a classmate to read it, and that was the moment when I became, you might say, lost in a world. I read manga online, ordered it on special websites on the internet, because holding a volume of manga in my hand was a special joy. And I exchanged manga with the same fans like me. A little later, as an addition and continuation of my passion for manga, I started watching anime short films, stories, and the online TV series. I could stay up all night watching episode after episode. Of course, my parents knew I was interested in something Japanese because I was spending all my savings on another manga, but they didn't really look into it. They scolded me, of course, for staying up all night, but as long as it didn't affect my studies, they didn't restrict me in anything. I wasn't a fan of any particular genre: adventure, romance, sports, history, humor, science fiction, horror. I was interested in everything. The main thing for me was a well and thought out plot and cool characters. And thanks to my passion, I found new friends. In our city, an annual anime festival was held where cosplayers, fans of computer games, and just fans of manga and anime got together. At one of these meetings, I met the guys with whom we later organized something like a club. In fact, we just met once a week, discussed our readings, and shared our impressions. One day, the girls from our club, Katie and Crystal, giggling and blushing, told us about yaoi. Well, it's a genre of manga and anime depicting romantic relationships between men. Personally, I've never been interested in this genre, but our girls were just fans of such stories. At one of the meetings, Katie, by the way, I really liked her at that time, told us about one yaoi anime, which, according to her, we just had to watch. I agreed because the plot there was very unusual, and the characters were very deep and thoughtful. Fortunately, this was not a romantic delusion, but a fantasy with action elements. Katie was so insistent that we couldn't refuse her, and we watched the first episode together at a club meeting. Surprisingly, the plot was really catchy, and the unconventional relationships between the characters were expressed more by the hints or subtext of replicas, so it didn't bother. I downloaded all the seasons to my laptop and decided that I would definitely watch it sometime. After all, there would be something to discuss with Katie if I decided to ask her out one day. But more on that later. I must say, me and my parents always had a great relationship. They never interfered with my life, did not pry out any details, did not rummage through my things. Anyway, they respected my personal space, and I was grateful to them for that one. One weekend, I was sitting at home, bored, and suddenly I remembered the anime Katie recommended. I've already watched the second season, and even though the relationship between the characters became much more frank, the twisted and non-trivial plot still compensated all the shortcomings. I was finishing watching another episode when my mom invited me to lunch, where I got a call from a friend, and then we went out for a walk. In the evening, when I returned to my room, I noticed that my mom and dad had obviously been there. Her day off was traditionally a cleaning day. Clothes laid in perfect piles, fresh bed linen was made, all my empty food packages were removed from the desktop. There was an open laptop on the table, and I remembered I hadn't finished watching the anime episode. At that moment, I didn't even think this laptop could have attracted the attention of my mom, who accidentally swiped the mouse while cleaning and thereby brought the computer out of sleep mode. Anyway, I finished the season and went to bed, unaware of anything. The strange things started the next morning. Mom and Dad looked at each other in silence. They seemed to want to tell me something or ask me something, but they couldn't make up their minds on how to do it. Then my dad casually asked me how things were going at school, how was the anime club, and oh god, for the first time in my life, he asked me if I had some girl I really like, saying I was already a grown-up and stuff. Of course, I was embarrassed. I decided it wasn't the right time to tell my parents about Katie, so I just laughed and said I wasn't interested in girls at all, because there are a lot of other interesting things in life for me. My parents looked at each other again and made no comments. They kept looking at each other enigmatically every time we got together. One day, I invited my friend to play a game console after classes. We often hung out together for games, so usually his visit did not raise any questions from my mom. But this time, she nodded uncertainly when I told her Johnny was coming. What's wrong with her? I thought. She surprised me even more when a couple of hours later, she burst into my room without knocking, offering us juice and cookies. Just for you to know, my mom always knocked before entering the room. And then she almost flew in, as if she wanted to catch us doing something. All these strange things in my parents' behavior bothered me. I was sure there was something they were concealing from me, and I couldn't think of any way to start a conversation. In parallel with this, another important event happened in my life. Katie herself invited me to go out. Not with other guys from the club, not with her friends, just the two of us. I was so glad she made the first step. I felt like she liked me back. Anyway, in the evenings, I often disappeared, spending time with Katie, who already offered me herself on the second date to become my girlfriend. Of course, my parents noticed this and questioned me about where I was and with whom. I was still too shy to say to my parents I had a girlfriend, so I made up my mind to tell them that I was just hanging out with pals. However, after a while, I realized that it was better to introduce my parents to Katie, so there would be fewer questions, and Mom and Dad would be happy I finally had a relationship with a girl. My parents, of course, were very happy, but mostly for some reason, they were also surprised. They looked at Katie as if they couldn't believe their eyes. After dinner, I accompanied my girlfriend home and decided it was time to talk to my parents and discuss their strange behavior. Even Katie noticed it, but what I learned during the conversation was already shocking to me. Keep on watching this video. It turned out on the day when I left my laptop on the table with a series of the same yaoi anime paused, my mom accidentally brought the screen out of sleep mode and saw something that she should not have seen. She called my dad and they watched the series together, and to put it mildly, they were surprised that their son likes to watch this particular genre, and they could only conclude that I was gay. I couldn't believe my ears. But after their story, I think I started to understand why they started asking me questions about girls, and why my mom burst into the room that time when me and Johnny were playing video games. Anyway, I had to tell them there was just this kind of anime genre, and I watched this series just because of the plot, and not because I like to watch romantic relationships between men. Yeah, the situation was as awkward as possible, but I'm glad I talked to my parents and cleared the thing up. It's kind of weird to think they thought I was gay just because of that. Anyway, I made two conclusions from the story. First, you should always turn off the computer and not store something that's not intended for other people's eyes. Second, if there is even the slightest chance of misunderstanding, you need to talk to your parents beforehand. Otherwise, you'll never know what they're going to imagine. Tell me, do you have any secrets from your parents? Have you ever had such cases when they accidentally found out you were hiding from them something? Share your answers in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed my story and had some fun. Feel free to like this video and subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of interesting things waiting for you ahead. And don't forget to turn on notifications to never miss new videos. See you guys soon. Have fun.